recent announcement to the mini hammer nerf coming up for season 23. It got me thinking about a build that I used a couple of months ago and I've been using ever since. And that's a Solar Titan build without the use of thrown hammer, but still being effective in game with it. So the thrown hammer nerfs, I'm sure you know, it's going to have a cooldown of 1.4 seconds, so you can't spam it back to back, but it's still going to have its uses, I believe, in the game at that stage. But anyways, this is a build without it, completely not using thrown hammer at all, but doing similar things to what that used to do. Apart from DPS, but I have got an answer for DPS as well. So how would a Solar Titan do DPS in Season 23 effectively without the use of a thrown hammer? And that's what I'll cover at the end. And also, what is Ad Clear like without the thrown hammer? While still being as effective, and if anything, a little bit easier because there's no thrown hammer to throw. So if you miss your thrown hammer, big deal. Well, that won't happen, sorry, because you haven't got a thrown hammer to throw, because we're going to put on Hammer Strike, and this gets the play loop started. So you would pop a healing nade, you then start with a Hammer Strike, that then procs Roaring Flames, and then probably a Sunspot as well, and then you can start the playback loop to this, which is similar to the throw and hammer loop, but it's a little bit different. And this is information that you're going to not know because there's no tooltip information to tell you about it, which is shameful, really. It should be in here, but it isn't. So what I'm about to tell you now is very useful. So you can keep a solar restoration chain going with abilities without the use of the throw and hammer and without the use of the hammer strike, because you can't spam that back to back. So what the hell's going on? Well, uncharged melees on a Solar Titan add scorch stacks to enemies. And there's no tooltip information about it anywhere. It's in an old twab. And if you weren't around during that old twab, or if you don't search Reddit, or if you weren't aware of it, then you don't know about it unless you've accidentally come across it. So once you've got Roaring Flames active, any melee ability that, any uncharged melee that you do is counted as a melee ability. So basically, a Solar Titan doesn't have uncharged melee. It's all ability damage because you've got solar stacks in your fist basically, and that you're adding scorch stacks. So you just melee everything, and you're getting sunspots, and you're getting scorch stacks, and you're getting your Roaring Flames, and you're getting your sunspots without the use of a mini hammer. So this is the biggest thing that I can tell you, is that you don't have to run the mini hammer anyways in the game right now. But for DPS, it is better with the mini hammer right now. But there's a way around it, which I'll, as I say, I'll go into. So those are the main aspects. You would obviously use these two, and next season you will as well. You won't be using the other ones. Consecration has some use, and I've seen people use it here and there with things, but it's a little awkward to use. You're generally using these two. All right, so fragments that I recommend for this: Ember of Torches for Radiant, Ember of Solace for doubling up on Radiant and Restoration. That's huge. You need that one on. And then this one, Ember of Empyrean, will help you do your solar chain killing infinitely with infinite restoration and infinite sunspots, etc. You need this on. It's minus 10 resilience, but it's so worth it. It's the best solar fragment we have, I would say. And then Ember of Ashes, because it increases your scorch stack. So the uncharged melee attacks that you're doing will have more scorch, adding more scorch to bosses. So you're not spamming Hammer Strike. Hammer Strike's just to get the ball rolling. The uncharged melees is what's going to do all the damage, which you see in the footage. So that's the aspects and the fragments explained. The mods I would recommend, I mean, this is subject to change because Season 23 is not out. I can't tell the future, but I can give an educated guess. So I've got double hands on here, but I didn't have to. I could have ran a heavy ammo finder, then a hands on. Either or, depends what you're doing. In a GM, you need heavy ammo finder on. Outside of GM stuff, you don't really need it on. You can go double hands on. The gauntlets, so we're using the exotic gauntlet Synthoceps, which is going to get a 35% nerf next season, which is going to affect things a little bit, but not too much. It's still going to be usable. I will say that Wormgod Caress is getting a massive rework, so that might be better in slot. We have to see what that rework's like. It is technically better in slot now for damage, but its usability is so niche that people don't really use it outside of a couple of things. But it's getting a massive rework, so it might end up being that Wormgod's slightly better. We don't know. I don't know fully yet. But Synthoceps is going to be something that you don't really need to do anything about. You just need to keep ads alive. And it's 165% buff to your melee damage. That's huge. So that stays on as of now until we look at it. The chestplate has charged up on it. I mean, that's standard at this point. The boots has invigoration and innovation. That's right. So on orb kill, on orb pickup, we get grenade energy and melee energy, which is what we want the most for this. Especially we want a bit of melee energy back, because if there's times when we come to lose our roaring flames, we need to do another hammer strike at some point. I'm not saying that you need to run strength stat for it, but I'm just saying maybe sprinkle a couple of melee ability mods in your build. You're going to get plenty of nades, don't worry about that, because you got double impact induction on. You're going to get your grenades so back that you won't even think about it. And you don't need to pop 10 healing nades back to back. You need a few here and there. You don't need 10 back to back. You're going to get plenty, so it's okay to justify using double outreach on this. So you're going to pop your rally barricade every now and then because it's a shorter cooldown over towering, and you're going to do that. Healthy finisher to keep hold of your armor charge stacks, which this then, so everything I've just told you is for ad clear, which I'm going to give you for at the end, which I'll timestamp. Then we get to DPS. Right, so how would this DPS? Right, well, Hammer Strike ain't going to do much for you. Right, I agree with you. It's not going to do much for you for DPS. So how would you DPS and stay alive? Because that's the thing about Mini Hammer. You were allowed to stay alive because you keep getting the cure and stuff like that. So without the thrown hammer, how can you kill a ogre or something in a dungeon that's melting you down and staying alive without any protection? Well, that's where the sunspots come in and the scorch stacks. You can basically stay alive off that boss because there's sort of a sunspot attached to the boss. So you're melee and shotgun, which weapons I haven't talked about. So you want a 1-2 punch shotgun. Eyeglass shotgun's perfect for it because it's solar and it's 1-2 punch shotgun. It's generally regarded as one of the better 1-2 punch shotguns, I think. And it's rapid fire frame, what have you. And obviously tractor cannon for a debuff because tractor cannon got when they nerfed Divinity, they then buffed tractor, and then tractor was the go-to debuff weapon, and especially solo wise. So you're going to want that on as well. But you're going to see me on a DPS test basically being able to solo free phase a dungeon boss, which is difficult to solo free phase with most loadouts, right? Let alone something that I'm using that's quite unique. But this is where we come to. So imagine that we do that dungeon rotation, that whatever it is that's required, and then we swap to this build, which is a different set of gauntlets called Pyrogale Gauntlets, which basically makes your solar burner Maul super into a one-shot style super, which it's very good. I haven't tested it. It's very good on what it does. I know it adds some other things, but focusing mainly on the burner Maul style of things, which bear in mind, you can run Hammer of Sol and just not do this and keep Synthoceps on. And you'll do decent-ish damage, but you won't do as good damage as Pyrogale, like for DPS, because it's instant. Right? There's a difference. Whereas Hammer of Sol, it's a 15-second super or whatever. Lasts a long time, but that's not good DPS. That's just good survivability and damage over time. But in dungeons, you need good DPS. And a Burner Maul with Pyrogale will give you good DPS, because right after your super, guess what? You go in with your weapons. You go in with your 1-2 punch and your scorched melees, which I'll demonstrate when we get there. So, but there's a unique thing is I actually used 3 builds to pull this off. So build 1 was survivability, build 2 was for the instant super, and then after we super, we go right back to Symphos, right, to then do 1-2 punch shenanigans with tractor cannon, to then basically make up a damage rotation on the boss, which you'll see coming up. So that's everything I have to say about it. I'm not saying you can use this build that I'm using next season, but with the thrown hammer, that's fine. You'll still be able to do that if you want, and then maybe incorporate a couple of mini hammers during your rotations, and maybe do like mini hammer uncharged stack, mini hammer uncharged stacks, and you combine the 2 separate melees. There's things like that you can do. So it's not game over entirely, but here's the footage coming up. So for the first test that we're going to showcase is what's its ad clear and survivability like. Now this is just a random loss sector, but if you want to see more challenging content, then go and watch my Solo Falls Course to the Deep run with this build without the thrown hammer, and you'll see that it worked perfectly in that. Easily, and that's one of the most challenging dungeons for people. So we'll get rid of our super to show you the ability energy that we get and the playback loop of this build. So first, pop healing grenade, then go and kill an ad with your hammer strike, then start popping all your abilities, your barricade, your nade. You don't have to keep popping nades back to back, your solar nades, because you've already got infinite restoration, but I'm just showing you how quickly I'm getting my nade back. Use more hammer strikes, why not, and just go on a kill chain. That's what it's all about, and it works. And in my opinion, it works easier than the hammer, because the hammer, you miss it. If you miss your hammer, you've got to go and pick it up. There's nothing worse. You're not going to whiff a melee, and if you do whiff the melee, you've still got your arm on your body, haven't you? You're not throwing your arm, so it's easy. Get it? So look at the super energy that we're getting. Look at the ability energy that we're getting. So it passes the test for ad clear. And like I say, if you want to see more challenging content, then you should have watched my Ghost of the Deep, and if you haven't, go and watch it. So the next test will be the DPS. How would you solo DPS with this build? Because the thrown hammer keeps you alive during DPS. So how are you going to stay alive after super? How are you going to stay alive? Well, I'm going to show you that damage rotation and what it would look like with the builds that I've suggested on the dungeon boss from Grasp of Avarice, the ogre boss, which it's perfect for. Granted, there's a lot of setup to it, but I'll take you through it and break it down. So first thing, we need to do the mechanic of the dungeon, but we need to build up our stacks of Roaring Flames ×3 and get our armor charges up and all that stuff, which is easily done, of course. So this is just showing you, the damage potential of it. Obviously, we need super, which I'm on Burn Maul. We're on Synthoceps right now, which I'm going to swap off when we get to damage. So we're just going to make sure that we're maintaining our 20-second buff of the Roaring Flames. We need to keep that as high as possible before DPS. So we'll dunk our riches. We've got a bunch of Thrall left, which is what we want. But we also have Acolytes to the left to keep for Synthoceps buff. We then swap off to Pyrogale build. We go with Tractor Cannon debuff. So we're going to go for the Pyrogale super, then swap again whilst we're in that sunspot, right, with the Synthoceps. Now we can do 1-2 punch Tractor Cannon Synthoceps, and we can stay alive because there's a sunspot attached to the boss, so it was keeping us alive. Got it? So this is how we can sort of stay alive during a damage rotation. We end up being able to solo 3 phase doing a 1.5 million HP phase, which the boss has 4.5. So make sure that you subscribe, and in case I didn't see you, good afternoon, good morning, and good night.